Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today I'm reviewing Velocity Vanguard, a game either currently or soon to be on Kickstarter. Either way, link in the description down below. And Velocity Vanguard is a game of, well, scenarios. It's a game full of solo, co-op, competitive, racing, get to the objective first, mine, gather objectives, destroy each other, blow each other out of space. Different scenarios, different goals in this game as you effectively are navigating around a very unique space combat mechanism. And to that end, I'm not going to go into a full how to play everything because there are a lot of small details which we'll kind of address a bit. But the core mechanism of this game, the core mechanism, is the idea of space movement. You're going to have your board or your shipboard over here, and you could control multiple spaceships. You have different tokens for your different spaceships that you're going to be controlling. But let's pretend for a second just that we're dealing with one big spaceship over here, and we want to move it. And again, I'm going to abstract some of the aspects of energy, how you get that, your crew manure, your crew management, your ship health, all those things I'm going to leave alone for a second. And I'm going to focus on what makes this game unique, because this game is incredibly unique. And like I said, that's going to be the movement. So let's just pretend I can spend 3 movement points a turn. You can spend a movement point to go forward in a straight line from the arrow that you have. You can spend a movement point to rotate one direction, continuously that. And let's go with 3 movement points a turn. And let's pretend for a second, and this is actually a starting scenario, but I'm doing it without any of the extras around it. Let's pretend I need to get the yellow spaceship to that alien spaceship and dock. And I need to dock at a speed of 1, which basically means I need to not be ramming into the spaceship at full speed when I land there, because you know that makes sense. Enemy spaceships or ally spaceships tend to not love when you ram straight into them. So let's go ahead and start it off. So I'm starting off at a speed of 0. This is the whole aspect of the game. And I'm at a speed, momentum, all that stuff of 0. But I'm going to go ahead and I figure I got to move forward. So I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's where my little module there is. Everything's all going great. Awesome. This spaceship is now going to mimic on its movement turn. It's going to go from the center of gravity, from that little black spot over there. It's going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay. All things are good. Next turn, I have 3 movement points. Well, things just got a little trickier because I got to figure this out. I'm going to go ahead and go 1. I'm going to rotate 1 that way and then go 2, 3. Okay. Now you're always going to be mimicking not just what I did, but you're always mimicking absolutely everything that was done. And I hope that this actually works out. We're going to go forward. You're going to always mimic that spaceship. So it's going to go forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it's going to rotate to face the direction that our little thing is over there. Okay? So again, it's literally following this pathway over here. From there, I'm a little bit nervous of exactly where it's going to go. I think I want to go ahead and go, I'm going to go ahead and go 1, 2, and 3. I'm a little nervous here. This is a part where I'm going to go ahead and blow up shortly. I think maybe, I'm going to sit there like this and move 1 that way. Okay, so we did 1, 2, and 1. Things are going to be problematic here. Watch as this plays out. So we're going to go ahead and go, we can go 1, 2. So we're going to go forward 1, and then we're going to go 1, 2. Ooh, that's a close call. 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is the problem we have over here. And then we're going to go ahead and rotate the spaceship to mimic that direction. But it's still going based on the gravitational pull. This map effectively mimics that. You always have a starting point of the red dot. You're always trying to constantly take into account the actions from 2, 3 turns earlier are going to impact where and how you end up. I'm currently over there. I may or may not blow up. Let's see if I can make this work. So let's go ahead and go the following. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're trying to make a little bit more control, which means I'm basically going to be going forward. I can go forward 1, 1, and then up 3. 1, 2. Okay, cool. So I just hit an asteroid because I went a little bit too aggressive. Had I been 1 better, that would have been totally fine, although I still would have rotated and hit the asteroid, which means I'm going to take some damage to my ship. We're going to kind of ignore that for right now, but also because I collided with an asteroid, my speed's going to reset to 0. So the good news is I can a little bit more control my speed. The bad news is, in general, if you're used to driving cars or anything anywhere, generally coming to a full stop by hitting things is not the most efficient way to do so. Well, I mean, it's efficient, it's just not great for the long-term health of your vehicle. And in space, that's not necessarily the end of the day, unless, of course, you have other people firing lasers and rockets at you, which you will in this game, which means the damage you just got by coming to a full stop with an asteroid and with a very intimate introduction, not necessarily the best thing you could have done today. But, full stop, let's go ahead and continue going forward. 1, 2, 3. We're going to go forward. That's very nice, simple. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Now keep in mind, we're planning for a full rotational turn there. I'm going to go 1, 2. I'm a little bit nervous about this, but we're going to go for it. So I'm only choosing to use 2. That's okay. There are other things like reverse thrusters to push you back, but not all spaceships have them. Again, we're dealing with the core mechanism of the game for right now. So I'm going to go forward 1, 2, 3, up 1, and then rotate. Okay. Here's the part where we're going to start trying to take into account our future thing, because we have to dock in reverse. I didn't tell you that part. We have to dock in reverse at that spaceship at a speed of 1. So I'm going to go ahead and start easing out my pathway. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to go ahead and go 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to rotate backwards. Perfect. Beautiful. Almost beautiful, he says. He's not sure about this. We're going to go 1, 2, and 3. I think it's going to work. So now we're going to go, oh no, that's too much. That's too much. We're going to go 1, let's actually just go 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Nope, that's not great. Okay, we're there. 1, 2. We're still not there yet, because if we continued going, we'd collide. So now we're finally going to end with 1, 2, and boom, and now we don't move at all. We are perfectly docked at that spaceship. That is effectively the core way Velocity Vanguard works. That is the core mechanism of this game. Every player has their spaceship. If you're managing multiple spaceships, you'll have multiple ones of these, different heights, so you can determine them differently, all that. Ideally, I'd want them a little bit more differentiated. This is prototype. This is a good time to mention. This is a prototype. Everything you see here, rules, components, all that is subject to change. Ideally, I'd want to see more than just height differentiating them. I can see that being a little confusing. Maybe a little symbol or something, a little image of the spaceship. I don't know. But either way, you could have multiple ships being managed on your board as you try to basically navigate this space grid, trying to take into account aspects of actual momentum and actual lasting impacts, planning all your movements multiple turns in advance, because if you don't, you will die a horrible death colliding into asteroids. You'll get to know a lot of asteroids along the way, but no one will ever know because you'll be dead. So that is effectively Velocity Vanguard. Now, there's a few other things before we get into the review part of stuff. A few other things to note. Whole lot of stuff, because if you thought this was a one-trick pony, then, I mean, put it this way, when I first heard about this game, when I first was announced, I very much thought it was a one-trick pony. But there's a lot going on here to mix things up. There's gonna be, first of all, just piles and piles of different modules, all these different modules, everything else. These, look at that, I have a mine launcher, and I have a bomb launcher. And where do these go? These are gonna go onto your spaceship, so let's go ahead and take our spaceship board over here with our commander on it, and just show you how different things will be going onto your spaceship board. Basically, as long as you can fit things on, you can go ahead and build it. Think of this as your little grid. Different spaceship boards will have different sizes, so the smaller spaceships will have less room to build things. And look at that, we have some more modules. Oh, look at that, we got mass wave. That's gonna be fun there. And we have a little, oh, this is awesome. We have a vector thrust. You want to spend a little energy to push yourself out in different directions. You have little side thrusters on your ship. You can go ahead and build that. You can build things from shields to weapons to movement capacity, movement abilities, all these different things. Or what about cargo hold? You want a cargo hold to hold some extra energy or whatever it is? You can hold that. A whole bunch of things you can have in this game to mix it up. You are building out an actual spaceship. The one-trick pony part of things is the fact that, yes, there is a unique movement mechanism going on in this game. A unique movement mechanism that is, well, incredibly unique. I've never seen anything like it in any game I've played. That idea of the movement, the momentum carrying you through on multiple turns across what you do. But there's a ton of things to keep it up, and I haven't even talked about the crew. Let's talk about the various crew cards. You're going to have all these crew options for droid systems, munitions, I don't know if they're crew, whatever they are, engineers, ambassadors, support. These are all different crew that are going to go into your ship as well. So you have a ton of ways to mix it up that way. You have your commanders, you have the ship size, you have the scenarios. There's a ton of variety in this game to mix up how you're playing. Because like I said already, scenarios are going to be totally game changers in terms of how they do things. Maybe you're trying to dock at a spaceship. Good intro mission. That's a good solid way to start the game off. You have a bunch of players racing through space, trying to dock at the spaceship. They may collide with each other, or you could literally just hand someone the board like I just did and said, hey, here's how you play. Go from point A to point B. Watch as you learn how to play this game as you get a feel, because I guarantee you no one knows exactly what they are getting themselves into until they actually start moving through the board, until they actually start trying to navigate, and you're like, hold up. Okay, I heard you explain it, and I understand that, but you're telling me that I need to think through 4 turns before how I'm going to be ending up, because that's gonna be a bit of a problem. And you might think that that whole thing will get old, but guess what happens? You know, if you're trying to navigate through a complicated little spaceship, whatever, because once you learn the system, it's good, right? It's a little bit of a trick. You figure it out, you play the game, but now you got it down. You understand how to navigate through space. It's all totally good. It's chill. Except, of course, there are going to be rockets and mines and other things your opponents are throwing at you. Hey, look at that, this little mine. If we get within 3 spaces of it, we're gonna go boom. That's not great. Oh, wait, behind us, there's a rocket moving through space trying to catch up with us, a targeted rocket. And meanwhile, this guy's over here trying to fire his laser at us, and if we stay where we are, we're in trouble. All those things, all those little tricks that you're trying to figure out about how to move in this game, all those aspects that you are going to slowly but surely get better at, and you will get better at them, those things become increasingly harder as soon as you introduce the variance of different scenarios, the variance of different ways you're playing the game. You might have an escape mission where you have one player trying to get off the map with there's, secret mission, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. We can have that. You can have one person carrying the secret information from the droids trying to get out, and you can have 3 other players targeting that person trying to chase him down, and your goal is simply to get to the edge of the map unscathed, and it might be harder than you think. Because at the beginning of the game, every player is going to go ahead and pick their crew. Every player is going to go ahead and pick their different weapons and load up their spaceship. You might want to go defensive and a little bit moving capacity because that will help. But if you ignore all degrees of offense capacity, then, because you're trying to escape, right? So that should be easy enough. But if you ignore everything to do with offensive stuff, then players won't feel any risk whatsoever of getting too close to you. So maybe you grab a few mines to drop behind you, maybe a few thrusters, maybe a few extra shields, some other things. Meanwhile, they're loading up on lasers. They're trying to just completely shoot you out of the sky. This is a game full of scenarios, full of variance and full of abilities and everything else in this game, all catered around this movement system, this incredibly unique movement mechanism in the game. And like I said already, you can ramp people up in the game. You can start them off with a smaller spaceship with minimal stuff. You can start them off with no equipment, no gear whatsoever, just the basic core movement concept of the game. And then introduce things one at a time in this game. And the miniatures are incredible. These are incredibly unique miniatures. Each one looks and feels different. They're just solid little things going through space. Enjoy this. The purple one's personally my favorite because the purple one, they got these unique little just sharpened spike thingy-majiggies. I like them. They look like a cool spaceship. I wanna pilot that guy. But past that, miniature, the art, all those things are solid. Board art is beautiful. Lots of little numbers on them, all with little A, B, C, D, E's around them that you can't necessarily see at a glance, but that's going to help people navigate from this board. If you're ever uncertain, you can just kind of draw a line using the same A, B, C, D, E, F grid, just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of that. Tons of stuff, like I said already, to keep the game interesting, as well as solo and AI components in this game. But ultimately, it comes down to that puzzle. Ultimately, it comes down to how do I get my spaceship from point A to point B, accomplishing whatever objectives along the way, and hopefully not becoming too familiar with too many asteroids along the way. Now, there's a few small things I don't like about it. The first is going to be that, like I mentioned, it has a solo and AI aspect to the game, but also different missions will have different automation, so to speak, different kind of pre-programmed things, which I'm generally not a fan of having to look at a sheet and say, well, this follows this sequence. It's a standard thing in AI games. I just happen to not in solo games. I just happen to not love it when you have to follow a pre-programmed path for other things to do. I find it becomes a little bit tedious. Not a huge thing for me. Totally fine in games in general. It's just not my personal favorite. But really, for me, I would say my biggest critique of Velocity Vanguard is going to come down to the table size. This is a table behemoth. This takes up a lot of space. The map, and it kind of has to because of the different spaceship sizes, because of the relativity, because of the fact that you're trying to navigate through space. If you make everything smaller, then the spaceships have to become smaller, and that's a little less fun. You want to have at least a little room to navigate, and as it is, these grids are not oversized to begin with. But that said, excuses and reasons why it has to be this way aside, this does take up a decent amount of table space. This is not for your coffee table. Maybe, arguably. I can get it on this table. This is like roughly 3 feet by 4 feet, maybe. So roughly 3 feet by 4 feet for the game area. That's pushing everything condensed. So it does work, don't get me wrong, but it certainly is a large game to get on the table. And I checked with them. This is roughly going to be the final size, give or take a few inches or whatever it is, but this is roughly the current planned final size. As far as I can see, others not liking, to begin with, this can be very frustrating until and if you get your space legs. That whole puzzle, this whole aspect of trying to figure out how to move through space is a puzzle that I enjoy. It is a challenge that I keep coming back to because it's fun to try to figure out whether I can tactically outmaneuver 3 opponents in this game. And so, well, I enjoy that part of the game, but it can be challenging for others until they find their space legs. And more than that, that imbalance of players being better than other players can be frustrating. Now, assuming it's just the imbalance that bothers you, you can easily account for that by modifying the scenario rules, whatever it is, by, that 2-for-1 chase can become a 3-for-1 chase. You can give the other person a bigger or smaller spaceship. You can give different things to account for player imbalance by just slightly tweaking things. But if you just straight up don't like the puzzle, this is very much a puzzle. The entire game This is a one-trick pony. It's a very good one-trick pony and has a lot of things around it to keep it interesting. But this game ultimately does come down to how you're navigating through space using this momentum-based movement system. If that doesn't appeal to you, if you don't think you'd enjoy trying to figure out how to slowly drift around an asteroid while avoiding 3 missiles while someone else is shooting lasers at you while you slowly drift, reverse, drop a mine behind you, and then escape out the solar system, well, first of all, if that doesn't sound fun to you, who even are you? But if it actually doesn't sound fun to you, then this may not be a game for you. Secondly, there's going to be a lot of small edge cases in this game. The core concept, the core rules, all those things are very streamlined. But there's a lot of other things to kind of take into account. Lots of small rules around all the way that the shields work, your health works, the crew, all that, the slotting of weapons into your ship, each one of those, what happens when you drift through an asteroid, what happens when you drift through an opponent, opponents don't clash, asteroids do clash, lots of small little things. Edge of the board, not overwhelming, but certainly the core gameplay is this much, and then all the stuff around the core gameplay is that much. So it really does have a lot of, I guess it feels more like there's a lot of edge cases because the core game is actually that simple. And then lastly, there's going to be iconography in the game. Now the game does, should probably be careful with these miniatures, the game does come with a very handy dandy player aid that shows you all the symbols and what they mean, but lots of small iconography showing you basically, here we go, let's go over there. You can see every single weapon, it's not focusing, sorry. Okay, there we go. Every single weapon is going to have little symbols on it. Now, it's pretty easy to pick up once you get the feel for it, but like, whether it's a beam weapon, how far it goes, does it travel through other things? Is it a missile? Does it track missile? How many turns does the missile last in space before it just dissolves? All those things are going to be, they're pretty easy to pick up, but there is a decent amount of iconography in the game. The player aid, and then of course playing it again should help you there. As far as final thoughts on Velocity Vanguard, this is a game that I saw initially when they first had their Kickstarter, and I thought it looked cool, but I did think it was a one-trick pony. I thought, okay, great. Once you get past that movement system, that's it. That's the game. So it looks very cool. Looks very innovative. But I just can't see it being interesting after multiple plays. And yet, it's the scenarios, the weapons. Because I had no idea that there were even weapons when I first saw the campaign page. I don't remember what was on it. I just my own quick scrolling through it. I had no idea that there were weapons, that there were crew, that there were commanders, that there were all these other scenarios, all these other things that around that one-trick pony that continue to keep it interesting. Velocity Vanguard is a 4 to 5 for me. It's not. It is a one-trick pony, which is what I want to focus on. It is that aspect of movement and through space. If that isn't your jam, then this is not going to be a game for you. It's not going to be a worker placement, a hybrid, a dudes on a map. It's not going to fall into one of the typical genres that we know so well. This is a puzzle. The game it most reminds me of is actually going to be Quad Heroes, because it has that similar aspect of you have different scenarios, you have different ways of playing, co-op, competitive, solo, all those different things, and it's all based around a puzzle of how you manage your movement, how you manage your abilities and your movement to get from point A to B, to accomplish your objectives, to win in this game. A puzzle I very much enjoy, but ultimately it is all about the puzzle. That's my review for Velocity Vanguard. Link to the Kickstarter down below. Make sure to check it out. This one is it's a solid one. If you can get past the table space and the puzzle, then this very much is a game I easily recommend. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.